Hi, Ken Bates, back again with another episode of the VA Loan Officer Superstar Series. Here's where we go deep with a loan officer who's focused on VA and helping a lot of veterans and is a role model for others to follow. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing Donovan. No, I'm not even going to try and do the last name. Now, Donovan came from the ops side, 15 years over there, processing, underwriting, all that type of fun stuff, and he switched to sales. So guess what? He's great at the loans, but at first he was struggling with the sales side. Does that sound like you? Do you think you can learn from somebody that's gone through that transition? I hope you can. Some other things that has happened to Donovan is he had to say goodbye to his last company. He loved them, but it wasn't the right fit. Is that something you might be able to learn from? I think there's some awesome opportunities here. The last thing Donovan and I are going to wrap up with is what I call the discipline of saying no. Because as you're trying to grow your business, there are a lot of people saying you should do this, and sometimes the best thing you can do is say no to most of them. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you do, please subscribe below. All right, launch it. Afternoon, everybody. Ken Bates here for the VA Superstar Series, talking with Donovan. I can't even begin to pronounce your last name. How's it go?
Piacenza.
What?
Piacenza.
All right, Piacenza. Very much
pretty written out and spelled out, so yeah, tough to pronounce. Nobody gets it right.
Excellent. Well, that's why I know my strengths. I wouldn't know my weaknesses. I'm the math guy. Not the verbal guy. So I will just call Uncle Early. Have you pronounce it?
I can hardly say it myself, so we'll just stick with Donovan.
Okay, so Donovan, you're in Temecula and been a loan officer for about 5 years now. Is that right? About right?
That is correct.
Okay. Where did you come from before that?
Los Angeles area. I was in El Segundo where I grew up, and I worked with a lender out there for, I think I started there in about 1998. Started as a doc drawer, worked my way up to funding, underwriting, management, was on the operations side for the first 15 years of this.
Okay. So I like to think of underwriting as like the goalie, the defensive person. You're only supposed to let the stuff go through that is supposed to go through. Right. Whereas loan officers, we have a tendency to be the offensive people going, I want to push everything through that I can. So it's a slightly different mindset. How did you find that transition? Was it easier or was it hard?
You know what? The transition from being able to structure a loan, knowing how to submit a loan, knowing the right questions to ask, that seemed to be the easy transition. Getting into the sales side was something I was very nervous about. Just calling people, being on the phone, having other people hear me talk. I was so nervous in the beginning. I would go find a dark room, close the door, hope nobody heard me. Am I going to make a mistake here? That probably lasted for, I'm not even sure how long it lasted, maybe 6 months or so. And at some point, it was interesting. At some point, I realized, okay, I just walked through the whole office on this conversation, not worried a thing about anybody hearing me. I started to gain confidence in that area. So that was the biggest transition, just in speaking with people and kind of, selling myself, which I realized I'm not selling myself. I'm just be honest and open, and you have the knowledge. If you don't know an answer to a question, that's okay. Do your research, and so I was just constantly researching and developing and, improving myself in that area. So it was a bit of a transition to the sales side, but not so much to the knowledge side in terms of how to submit a loan, things like that, how to get things through.
Okay. So you had the background, the nuts and the bolts. So it's just a question of, okay, how do I do the sales stuff?
Exactly.
What made you switch? Why?
A lot of it was physical, being at a desk, kind of chained down to the desk on the keyboard, typing all day long. For 15 years, I started to feel it. And it was also just, it didn't feel like that meaningful contribution. I wanted to get out there and to be able to help people and, let them understand this business and really kind of educate and teach clients is what I kind of pride myself on. And I think that was a big part of it. And of course, the ceiling for income was much higher as well. So it was to improve quality of life, and quality of job is kind of how I felt.
Okay. Going from ops to sales, obviously you have to start generating business.
That's right.
What did you try at first? What worked? What didn't work? And what ultimately have you found is your best path?
Well, what didn't work, I'll tell you, was sitting at my desk all day on my chair and hoping that I was somehow going to hatch a loan. I mean, you have to get out there. You got to talk to people. You got to meet new people. And that was a little bit of a struggle for me as well. I mean, I'm a little more the reserve type, kind of an introvert. My favorite thing to do on a weekend is sit home with my wife, watch a nice movie, and cook a really nice meal. I wasn't the type to go out, and you've really got to go out and put yourself out there. So that's something that, going to the board of realtors, things like that, just meeting realtors, going to events. There's always events. There's chamber meetings. There's places where you can go and, socialize. And it's not that I couldn't socialize. It was just something that wasn't, as a means of getting business. It wasn't, one of my priorities in life, really. And it's kind of, those are things that kind of work, just getting out there, meeting people, talking to agents, meeting new ones. As I got a little bit stronger in this job, doing kind of seminars for new agents, for first-time home buyers, things like that, started to get my name out there and generate a little bit of business.
Okay. So now your name's been out there, and you said you've been doing some seminars. What seminars do you find are the most successful?
I think ones with real estate agents and kind of educating them on different products, whether it's VA, most oftentimes in this area in Temecula, we have so many military families. So I really want them to know if they're going to be the first person to talk to any potential client, kind of the ins and outs of it and what the big benefits of the VA loan are. And other products as well, FHA, conforming, but VA is one of the big ones that that I do in terms of training, agents or, first-time home buyers. Those are the two main ones. Now,
you mentioned going to new agents. Advantages, disadvantages of going to new agents.
Well, the disadvantage, of course, up front is most of us don't just hit the ground running when it comes to, being a loan officer or a real estate agent. It takes time to produce. So you're investing time and being there for them with any questions they may have throughout the process, but they might not be, doing much business in the beginning. So monetarily, it takes time to kind of, come through. But, you're building those relationships, and as you're educating, there's some power in that. There's some confidence that builds in yourself. And, it's really, it works both ways as far as the benefit goes. So the new agents, it's nice because you build that rapport, you build that trust with them, you become their go-to person if you're, assuming you're doing the right thing and you're there for them and you're answering all their questions. But yeah, the downside could be that it could take them a little bit of time to turn that into some income.
Yes, let's face it, the classic loan officer training model is go find the top producing real estate agents in your town, earn their business, and then keep their business. And, it's all about the, Pareto's principle, the 80-20. Go find the 20 that are going to make you 80% of your income.
Right.
This is a little bit the opposite. It's something we actually do at our company. I refer to it as targeting the bottom 90%.
Right.
You know what? A lot of loan officers are chasing those top 10 percenters. Right. And it's a business model that works. I'm not disputing that, but it's, hey, you know what? The other 90%, they need servicing and help too. And some of them are a little bit more appreciative of it. Are they a little bit more chaotic? Are they a little bit more, not as volume centric and everything else? Yeah. And that can be a challenge, but as long as you're growing with them, it's a great way to grow.
That's exactly right. And chasing those top 10 or 20%, I mean, that's a formula that I haven't figured out yet. I mean, and trying to cold call somebody who's already been working with a lender for many years and explaining why they should work with you, it's oftentimes something that I don't even try, because how is that going to be received? How would I receive it? We get marketing calls all the time. I'm sure you do. I know I do. And not many of them work on me, I'll tell you that. So that's a really challenging one. You know what I focus on when I do get a buyer? I really focus on the listing side. Here's an opportunity to where, okay, this is a big agent. I'm very aware of them and what they do. And I've got an opportunity to wow them. And here it is. We're going to communicate now because we're working on a mutual transaction here. So that's an opportunity to kind of go after the big hitters in a warm kind of connection because you're already working on a file together. So, I try to wow everybody. That's the goal, to really come through and earn business through performance. So
now, do you have anything specific? When we talk about a wow experience, do you have anything specifically you do that is what I would call above and beyond a truly remarkable?
It's really the simple stuff. It's amazing that the biggest complaint from agents is simply the lack of communication. We mark it down where, we're going to touch them 2 times a week throughout the transaction. On a Friday, if there's nothing new to report, the update is, hello, everyone, nothing to report. We're still right where we were. Here's what you can expect next. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back in touch on Tuesday.
So via phone, email, or what?
It's typically all of the above. Right from the start, I ask them how they like to be updated, whether it's through text, phone, or email, and then I'll go that route. And that's really kind of one of the most simple things that not everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. My goal is to make it so they never have to call me because I'm staying ahead of them at all times. And, that's worked pretty well. I've gained a few agents that way that were just, had just come through working with another lender where they couldn't get a hold of them and
Yep.
weren't getting any updates, and maybe the deal fell out. Whether the news is good, great, bad, anywhere in between, you're going to hear from me. So that's one of the biggest things, I think, and it's really quite simple. It really is. So
yeah, we do something very similar. It's a form that we fill out that goes out every Tuesday and Friday. It goes to the listing side as well as the buyer side. That just says, here's where you are.
Right.
The analogy is, I don't know if you've ever ordered Domino's pizza, and you can literally go, hey, look, I ordered my pizza. Now it says Timmy J is putting in my order. Johnny J is prepping my pizza. Susie's putting it in the oven. Hey, it just came out of the oven, and Jenny's going to be driving. You can see your progress go along.
Yes.
And when we push that out, we do it via email, and we follow up via phone call as well. Like you said, people don't call. They know what's going on. They know what's going to come next. And one of my loan officers applied for a loan with one of the really big banks. And they, of course, had a tracking system, but he had to log in, put in 16 passwords or something, then go to three pull downs later, and it would say, here's the current status of your loan. We're still missing 3 conditions. So he had to proactively do a bunch of crap just to figure out what was going on and go, hey, there used to be 4 conditions there. Now there's 3. So I guess they have reviewed them and something's wrong with these 3. Like, oh my gosh, that should not be the client experience. The client experience should be, you send me stuff before I'm even thinking about it.
Right. And everybody's the client. The buyer's the client. The agent's the client. Anybody who's involved in the transaction is the client. And
yep.
You just want
to make the listing agent's job easy. They can look good to their seller, and they can get referrals from their seller, which is how you make the listing agent happy.
Without a doubt. And there's times where, even if everything's going perfect and you're already to docs and it's 2 weeks in, if you haven't told anybody, they're sitting there festering. You never know at what moment what is going on here? Why haven't I heard from anybody? And everything's going perfectly well. If you're not telling them, don't even let those thoughts creep in. Stay ahead of it.
Yep. Now, you came from an ops role at a different place to where you are now. What made you switch? Why the switch of companies?
Yeah, I was with my first company for, if I'm in 20 years, it's coming on 3 years next month, I believe, in February. So, yeah, my last company was excellent. I loved being there. I loved the ownership, the management, really good people, but they were in a different area. They were, the corporate office is in El Segundo. And, there's not a lot of, they weren't doing a lot of VA work. They were doing a lot of jumbo, a lot of conventional. So they weren't well versed in VA and FHA. So when it came to underwriting, it just seemed like everything was stalling out. And we're having to say, here's the guideline, here's the guideline, here's the guideline. And it can become quite exhausting from a loan officer's perspective. You want the underwriter to, have that experience. And, we just simply didn't have it. They opened a branch out here in Temecula, which is why I moved out here in the first place with my wife and I. My wife's parents had retired and moved out here. So we thought, hey, this is a great opportunity to go out there to become a loan officer, transfer with my branch. But that was the major issue. I was still doing just fine in terms of submitting. I've never submitted a loan that didn't close. Even with the challenges that we had, but just having to fight for everything and making it seem like, I have to get an exception for these simple little things, like you're doing me a favor to close this beautiful loan that's very well qualified. It got to a point where, I switched to a company that was well established out here and had been doing a lot of VA, a lot of FHA, the government stuff that we do so much of out here. And the transition was a great move for me. It really was. Everything's closing on time or ahead of time, and there's just no issues. I really enjoy working there.
Yeah, I've run across other originators that are like, yeah, I'm fighting with my underwriters all the time. And it's like, yeah, at some point you need to go, I love the company, but this is not the right home for me. If I'm going to stay focused on this niche, I need to go find a home where there's almost no overlays and, they know how to do it and they have a can-do attitude.
Right. I want to have the confidence that knowing that if I know I've completed this application correctly, all the information is accurate, I'm getting the automated underwriting approval, hey, I know I have a loan. There's some certain confidence in that, and you've got to have that behind you with the company that you're working for.
All right. Now, with your ops background and being focused on VA, what do you see other loan officers screwing up when it comes to a VA loan? What do you think are the problem areas that people most often miss?
I'll tell you, what I've noticed is with lenders out here, there's not so much of a issue with it in the Temecula Murrieta area because we have so many military families. It's like, if you're going to be in this business out here in this area, you better be pretty well versed in VA. But oftentimes I'll see it. Just a month ago, there was a lender from, a different county far away, and they had, the buyers, they were a family friend, the lender, and, it was an agent of mine who had accepted the offer. She called me a few weeks into it and said, wow, the other lender didn't realize that, it was just the husband was had the military background. The wife wasn't going to be on the loan, and they didn't realize they had to pull her credit. And when it got to underwriting and time for approval and they pulled her credit, there were massive amounts of debt on there. And all of a sudden they weren't approved for that loan. Other types of things are, when there's a lender out of county, maybe they're not aware of the VA loan limits. And so now they've approved somebody for 100% financing. Well, it's 100% up to the loan limit for whatever county you're working on. Anything over that, you have to have a down payment. The down payment is still minuscule compared to any other type of loan, but maybe it's just something that simple, or it's the residual income. They're not aware that they have to do this other calculation for the residual income to make sure they qualify. So it's always kind of simple stuff like that, or they think they can put another family member who is not a spouse and still get the 100% financing. It's just not knowing the guidelines, and it's typically from not, being in an area where you're not serving, VA type of clientele.
Yep. The county limit one, I'm in San Diego, you're in Temecula, we're both in California. So for those people watching, we are a community property state. That's why we had to pull the joint credit report in that example. But San Diego County for 2019 is $690,000.
Right.
Riverside County up in Temecula is $484,000.
That's correct.
So do we have families that start in San Diego and go, I want to go buy a house? They go get pre-approved for $600,000 house and life is fine. Then they discover this place called Temecula, which is an hour up the street, and you can get, I don't know, twice as much house for your money. That's because it's, it's inland, it's, farther away and all that other type of stuff.
Right.
And we have to hammer to the real estate agents, hey, you know what? If you cross that county line, that pre-approval you have for $600,000 with zero down, not real anymore. And you need to know that because, often it's the real estate agent that goes, oh yeah, we're going to cross the county line. Nobody updates the lender. and tells them until it's like, hey, good news, we're in contract and we got a place for $550, less than what they were planning on spending. And it's like, great, what's the address? Temecula. Okay, that's not zero down.
That's a very good point.
So yes, we see that get screwed up all the time. And when the agent calls and says, another lender, did this and this, apparently there's this new rule. There's this new rule that says, when you're in a community property state, you have to check the spouse's debts. Like, that is not a new rule. That is a new rule to you.
Right.
That has always been a rule. So you just screwed the pooch. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, for veterans themselves, our veterans are obviously getting more informed, as all consumers are, thanks to Google and Zillow and everything else in the world. Right. But some of them are starting to get some of the bad information that real estate agents we get, because information gets passed from one generation to the next, and is sometimes not always right. Right. What do you think is the most common things that veterans are told wrong?
I don't know. I think the marketing in general in our business is a little off-putting to me at times. One of the big things is, I'll get an agent, hey, do you offer the VA no-no? Because I got this other lender who offers the VA no-no. And it's like, VA no-no, okay, no money down, no closing costs. It's not a thing, of course. And no lender is going to say, hey, you know what? I'm just out of the goodness of my heart going to give you $10,000 towards closing costs. The truth of the matter is they're not special with that. I'm not special with that. The lender down the street is not special with that. If any lender is covering your closing costs, it simply means you're taking a higher interest rate. So the benefit for the investor is to say, okay, you need help $10,000 with these closing costs? That's fine. We'll give you that. And as incentive for us, what we're going to do is increase your interest rate and try to recapture that money over time through your monthly payments. So that's one of the big misconceptions. And I haven't seen a lot of marketing with no closing costs, lately, but God, a couple of years ago, that was it. That was the big thing. We'll cover all your closing costs. That wasn't special or unique to any lender. We can all do it. And ultimately the consumer is paying it in a roundabout way through a higher interest rate. So that was one of the things that kind of bothered me in marketing. Obviously you see companies that, hey, our rate's, 2.5%. I'd have clients, hey, they're offering 2.5%. Okay, maybe that's a start rate or something on an adjustable loan. They never get into what type of financing it is. It's a 10-year fixed. It's wherever it may be. So there's always, it's just basically to capture the lead. It's like Rocket Mortgage. Push the button, get pre-approved. It's kind of an awful message from where we come from, right? Push the button, here's your money. And it's really not true. Ultimately, you have to talk to somebody and you have to get approved. And it's really just, it's a lead capturing system is what it is, and then you're going to talk to them and explain to them, hopefully, thoroughly exactly how everything works. But to me, it's kind of those little tricky things in marketing that bother me the most, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you said there, just to echo it really quickly, I think the more loan officers of the world just take an application and do somebody's loan, and are not adding value throughout the process, is just echoing what the Rocket Mortgage marketing says, is we're not valuable. It's like a real estate agent that just opens the front door and tells you, here's the forms, fill them out, I'll sign the bottom. Clients are starting to go, well, what value do you bring to the process? Right. So if you're not sitting down and educating your clients about, hey, here's how that higher interest rate works, and yes, you get some of your closing costs covered, or here's why as soon as you buy your house, you are within 10 days going to start getting solicited for refinancing.
Right.
And here's what they're not going to tell you that is going to, let's face it, these people make money and they're really good at it, so their marketing is pretty slick. Right. And, you need to know about it beforehand, because otherwise it's like being at the magic show and you're going, I never saw the bunny rabbit until the last second. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? It's like, right. Yeah.
Exactly. You get people calling people to refinance to lower their interest rate a quarter. of a point, which is going to lower their payment, minuscule amounts. But look, the cost to do this refinance, I know even if they said nothing's coming out of pocket, sure, nothing's coming out of pocket, but it's $5,000, let's say, to refi this home, and you're going to save $50 a month. How long are you going to be in this home? Because you're not going to break even until this mark, maybe 10 years down the line. Here's the average amount of time that people are in a loan or even in a home. Does this really make sense? Sometimes I'm kind of talking people out of refinancing versus talking them into it, I find.
Yeah.
To do the case.
Now, you're not a veteran yourself. Do you find that to put you at a slight disadvantage, or do you have any things that you do to try and deal with that, or do you just completely ignore it?
I think now that you mention it, I feel like I pretty much completely ignore it. I've never thought about it from that perspective. I feel like, you don't have to have military background to be in the loan business. And, what I want to have is just simply integrity, education, things of that, perspective. So I feel like as long as I'm going that route and working with clients, that maybe it is a factor for some people. I'm not sure, but it's not an insecurity that I feel. And to me, it's a non-factor as far as from my perspective.
Sweet. Yeah, my advice to people is I have a teeny weeny bit of advantage because I can establish rapport at first a tiny bit better, but everything after that is exactly what you said. It is, hey, you know what? You got to take care of them. You got to have integrity. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for the fact that, I also know what a ditty move is. They're looking for somebody that is, hey, you know what? I'm going to work with people I know, like, and trust. So in the grand scheme of life, do I come out of the starting block a tiny bit faster? Yeah, but within the second step, you are right there, and I would echo what you say. Just ignore it. Be the professional that you are, and that's what people are looking for.
Right. Yeah,
Yep.
I agree with that.
Okay.
And you're right. I think it is probably a little bit tougher in the beginning. I mean, for me, in terms of bringing in the business, it probably is a factor. Once I meet with somebody and talk with them, I feel like I'm doing a good enough job because I care. And it's not even specifically necessarily towards my VA clients. It's every client. It's everyone. I'm not going to treat anybody differently, no matter what their background or work or education or whatever it may be. I want them all to feel, very comfortable with me and know that I'm out for their best interest, so it's kind of more about earning that. I think once I meet people, it's a non-factor, but yeah, bringing the big business in, it probably is a bit of a factor.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, if it's coming through a real estate agent or something else like that, I don't have an advantage over you. It's just when that client first calls, I can take a little bit of the fear out of the situation because it's just that rapport. That's it.
Of course.
Now, I know that you and I talked briefly before this interview. You're looking to grow your business and have 2019 be a bigger year than 2018. What are you planning on doing different in 2019 that you didn't do before, that is new, that is just expanded on what you did before? What's the game plan for 2019?
Well, it's not just a business overhaul as much as a personal overhaul as well, and just creating new habits. I mean, habits are such a big deal. I consider I eat healthy, relatively, but, probably cheat a little too much, late at night, whether it's desserts, whether it's more pizza than I should eat, whatever it may be. So diet and exercise is kind of where I'm starting. So just even away from the business side of it. So kind of self-improvement first and just kind of getting out there more. Being more active with my current referral partners, doing more stuff in the community, things like that. I have an agent that I work with that we do things in the community in Lake Elsinore at least once a year, have big events where people come out and, there's jumpers for the kids and there's all kinds of gaming stuff. There's food and we sponsor all this with trucks and, things like that just to kind of get ourselves a little more into the community, become a little more well-known, that kind of stuff. But it's hard. I mean, it's tough to figure out. That's the $1 million question is what are the best ways to kind of invest in your business? What's the best ROI, things like that. And that's something I certainly don't have the secret sauce, the magic formula, anything like that. So it's just about doing as much as you can to get in front of new people and let them know you exist.
Right. Now, I mean, one of the things that people are tempted to do is try a bunch of new things. And I know looking at, stuff like Facebook marketing or stuff along those lines, I think it's awesome that you're looking at going, hey, what is working for me and how do I just double down on that and forget that other stuff? Because the more those bright, shiny objects are over there distracting me, the less I'm doing my core business well. Right. And our industry, there's certainly lots of bright, shiny things that somebody will, hey, come to this seminar and I'll teach you this. Or, hey, so-and-so over there is doing this. They're buying such and such leads from such and such company, and they're growing like crazy. And you're sitting there going, I should be doing that. No, I shouldn't. So sometimes just having that discipline to say no to a lot of stuff is really important.
That's very true. It is very true. I mean, I really exactly. I mean, I did a lot of things last year, kind of exhausting myself and looking back, okay, this was very much not worth it. And, social media is something I could certainly be more involved in. I mean, I don't know if you looked at my Facebook, the last time I posted something, I think was, 2018 maybe. So
it looks like you post 2 or 3 times a year.
Exactly. I'm not huge on that. I'm kind of a caveman when it comes to that type of thing. I've never been the hey, look at me, here's what I'm doing, type. But not that there's anything wrong with that. Not that that's even the perspective of most people who are active on Facebook. But I kind of need to get out of my own way on a lot of things. And maybe, it's a balance of life. People who are more reserved should be more aggressive. People who are aggressive should be a little more reserved. Me being reserved, my aggressive side's probably never going to offend anybody. I'm very thoughtful and considerate, I feel, when it comes to those types of things. So I do need to just kind of put myself out there a little more and take some more chances and, be a little bit more involved on the social media because it's an opportunity to put good information out there, so why be afraid of that?
Or just keep doing what you're doing. Because if it's not your thing, don't do it. It's one of those, either do it and do it great, right, or don't do it at all. Because anything in the middle is a lot of work with no return.
You're right. And I haven't figured out how to come across on social media yet. Anytime I've posted something or responded to something, I'm like, God, why can't I just be me? I feel like this is like some other, that's not how I really respond or react, but it's how I find myself typing out that response, and it's all I can do. So you're right. I mean, if it's something where it's simply not going to fit for me, you can pull away from it and invest somewhere else where, things that do work, things where you do feel comfortable,
Now, you talked about life balance. You're married. How many hours a week are you working, and how do you put in boundaries of, when are agents allowed to call you or not call you?
I don't have any boundaries as far as when I'm going to answer my phone, if I'm at dinner, obviously at the dinner table, things like that, but my wife's very understanding when it comes to that. And, it's tough. That's the challenge of our business, right? I mean, really trying to condense things into those working hours. I feel like there's days where, God, I just did a ton of work and I got it all done in 8 hours. There's other days where I'm like, God, I felt like I worked from about 7 a.m. to about 9 p.m. today. But if I look back and think of all the productive things I did, I probably could have condensed that into about 2 hours. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the challenge of it. Really, I haven't found the way to kind of really take control of that and, set those boundaries yet. That's something I'm working on as well, to be honest with you. But I'm very conscious of my wife and I, and when we have our times together that need to be uninterrupted, whether it's just, out on a walk, whatever it may be. But for the most part, I'm always answering my phone and always taking those calls and always ready to help. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely something you evolve to. And one of the gentlemen I interviewed here, he said, that's one of my unique selling propositions is I'm always available to my agents. And, I will tell you, or I told him, we all have different business models. The loan officers that work for me, It's no, you're allowed to have boundaries. So if you tell agents, hey, you know what, after 8 o'clock at night, I'm not taking work phone calls anymore. If you call, leave a message, I might answer, but more than likely, I am not even looking at my phone. Just like going on vacation. You know what? When I go on vacation, I have somebody cover for my work. I don't bring my phone with me.
And that's the healthy way to do it, and without a doubt, and that's what I'd like to grow up and work towards. And I think kind of volume dictates that as well. Once you're doing such an exceptional amount of volume, you absolutely have to figure out how to time block, how to say no, how to have boundaries. Without a doubt, that will all come with that, and that's something I'm working towards, without a doubt, as well.
Sweet. Any wrap-up stuff here that you would want to pass along to, let's say there's a young Donovan 5 years ago that's just starting out, coming out of the ops side and going, I want to focus on VA. Any lessons learned about what they should or shouldn't do right out of the gate?
I'm still learning, to be honest with you. What I would tell myself from 5 years ago is to just be a little more active in getting out there and meeting people. That's kind of the biggest thing. As far as marketing goes, where I would spend my dollars back then versus where I would spend them now would probably be a conversation we would have as well. But other than that, as far as consistently getting to a point where I know I don't have to worry about, my future in this business. I am in this for the long haul, and I've grown each year, and I feel pretty good about that. But you get to a certain level, and you know that you're never going back. I'm still figuring that out. So maybe 5 years from now, I'll have a better response to that.
That's fine. Well, I appreciate your time today, and thank you for being on.
All right, Ken. Thank you. It was nice meeting you.